Jiten sir, can you record? Just check. It's being recorded. Yeah. Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and good evening to our esteemed speaker today, who's based in Bengaluru. Welcome to our session, Management Training, Preparing for the Future, a series organized by Alpha Education Saudi Arabia with strategic partnership with Dayanand Sagar University, Executive Education. This series is designed to bring valuable industry-focused insights to professionals and aspiring leaders in Saudi Arabia. Every week, we invite an industry expert to share practical knowledge on key management topics such as marketing, finance, leadership, supply chain, project management, and much more. At Dayanand Sagar University Executive Education, we are committed to helping working professionals upskill and thrive in today's rapidly evolving business landscape. Our programs bridge the gap between academic excellence and practical industry experience, empowering individuals to confidently navigate real-world challenges. Alpha Education is dedicated to empowering professionals through comprehensive programs such as Executive MBA, Post-Diploma Certificate in Management, and various certificate courses. We also offer free weekly webinars such as this, led by esteemed professors covering topics like leadership, strategy, digital marketing, entrepreneurship, marketing, and so on. Our mission is to provide flexible, industry-relevant education, which equips individuals with the skills needed to excel in today's dynamic business environment. And today, we are delighted to host Professor Jitendranath Patri, as he will be discussing building a culture of innovation. We'll have a brief Q&A session towards the end, where we'll pick up a few questions towards the end of this session. Please feel free to post your questions during the session in the chat. With your permission, sir, I'd like to introduce yourself to everyone present in the webinar. It's our absolute pleasure and privilege to introduce our esteemed speaker today, Professor Jitendranath Patri, a distinguished academician, a corporate leader, and a mentor with a remarkable career spanning over 2 decades. Professor Jiten is a seasoned business leader with over 2 decades of experience in retail management, marketing, and startups. At Future Group, which is Future Lifestyle Fashions earlier, he headed marketing and customer loyalty for Central and Brand Factory, where he spearheaded strategies that enhance customer engagement and drove significant business growth. He's passionate about the intersection of retail and technology, and he collaborates with tech startups in retail and consumer domains. So he's also serving as a trusted advisor to help founders scale and achieve sustainable growth. He brings retail marketing experience, tech innovation, and marketing to these partnerships. As an adjunct faculty member at the School of Commerce and Management Studies, Dayanand Sagar University, he also teaches entrepreneurship and marketing while leading the COPE Entrepreneurship to inspire the next generation of innovators. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to Professor Patri. Sir, thank you so much for agreeing to attend this session. Sir, I would like to now hand over the podium to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Professor Rajan, and good evening to all of you who are here. So, I'm going to talk about a subject that's, I think, extremely relevant in the current times, right? The culture of innovation. I don't know if some of you have attended my previous talk of entrepreneurship, may recall a certain few things that I had mentioned there. And I think it's only right that I kind of continue the flow with this particular topic, right? In the current times, I think innovation is the lifeblood of every organization across the globe. Doesn't matter which geography one is operating in, or which geography one is headquartered in, and there are different reasons why this has come so, right? The word innovation conjures up different kind of images, right? And one is that of intrigue. See, do we really need it? Yeah. Is it really required? Is it something that's relevant today? And if you really look down and look at your own journey as someone who engages with brands, engages with different products, you would have seen a remarkable shift happening in the last 4, 5, 6, 7 years. Right? And it is because of this innovation and it's because of the innovation that's happening, that you're seeing the change that's taking place, right? Even in the current the current country that you're in, which is Saudi, right? There, and I'll share a couple of examples, and I'm sure one of them is definitely going to be a surprise for you. Every industry is now being transformed by innovative ideas. And this innovative ideas or innovation is coming not because of technology alone. It's something far bigger than that. Okay? Before I get on, I want to give you an example of this company. At one time, this company was written off. They had made a lot of mistakes. They went ahead and bought Nokia and then didn't know what to do with it and lost a lot of money. They invested some money somewhere else, and then lost it. And to people, I think Microsoft was seen as a company that knew only the Windows operating system and Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, and Excel. Till a gentleman called Satya Nadella took over. At that time, there was one company that was leading in something called cloud. I hope you understand what is cloud computing, right? And today, of course, cloud is moving to something else. But this is, I'm talking about at least about 10, 12 years ago. Uh, there was this company called Amazon that was the world leader in cloud computing. There was nobody else close. Within 2 years, Microsoft reached number two. And it could never have been possible if a culture of innovation had not been put into place. Yeah. A lot of successes in the area. And then even Amazon was surprised how quickly Microsoft, which is such a giant, and they all called it an elephant. They all called it a rhino because it was too big an organization. They were really surprised how at what speed they moved without even the industry really knowing that such a shift was really happening. Right. And today, of course, there's so much that has happened. Right. So let's get into what is called and understand the power of innovation. One company I'm sure you all would know that was for a long time the most innovative company in the world was Apple. Okay. I don't know today if they still have the same quality of innovation that they used to drive, or it is till Steve Jobs was alive, they used to drive. And because of the innovation, because of that uniqueness that they brought into their product, into the technology, into the overall user experience, I think customers today swear by Apple. Right? It's not like owning an Android phone. It's Apple has got it's like a cult. If I may add that word. Right? So what is innovation? Obviously, yes, and simply put, in simple words, it's basically turning ideas into tangible goods or services that provide value to customers. Fantastic, right? That's the end outcome. But innovative just doesn't mean only about creating goods or services. It could also mean putting into place innovative processes that can improve efficiencies within the organization. And why does one need it? Because in the current ecosystem or current business environment, you have to be constantly on your toes. You don't know what's coming. I used to be a very long time, and like Professor Rajan, very long time in advertising. And I think possibly one glorious years of advertising in India, at least. Uh, Advertising had a certain way of functioning. They had, designers and copywriters and who were very valued. They carried a lot of value on them because these are the guys who actually created those ads that you see in the newspaper, on the magazines, or even those social media posts. They brought them to life. But with the coming of something called generative AI in 2023, a lot of these guys lost their relevance. So how do you really survive in such an ecosystem? Today I can sit. I'm not a creative person, but today I can sit and design an ad, complete with the text, with the visual and everything, and so on and so forth, right? Including making a film, all by using generative AI. Any questions, please ask. I mean, if there's anything that you have, please stop and ask, or if you want to take questions towards the end also, it's perfectly fine, right? So why is it relevant today in the current ecosystem, the modern business landscape, right? The market is constantly changing. Why is the market constantly changing, if I may ask? Why do you think is the market constantly changing? Who's changing the market?
It's the requirement of the people. It's because of the innovative thinking.
You're saying customer needs something different.
Yeah. And people, like companies, also trying for new inventions, on the basis of the requirements.
There are two things. One is, yes, you're right. In a way, you're right on one front. Customers' needs are changing. The preferences are changing. They're becoming very, very unlike earlier when you could classify customer as a large group. Today, you can't. There are a certain set of customers who want very different kind of needs and who have very different kind of needs and preferences. Right? The other part is companies are also trying out new things and putting out new products there or new products and services. And more importantly, there's a very different kind of competition coming in. So how do you outperform this competition? You have the like-to-like competition, you have indirect competition, and you have competition coming in from very different kind of sources, right? And that's why today, innovation is so very relevant to the current business landscape. So how does this entire thing really get unraveled? How can organizations actually look, and how could you, as possibly a senior member in your organization, or you could be running your own firm, how can you look at implementing the culture of innovation within your own organization? One is obviously the ability to think creatively. Think, allow employees to express themselves. No holding back. No idea is bad. No idea is wrong. The ability to, get very different perspectives coming in. It's not just about the marketing team. It's not just about a sales team. It's not just about a team that heads finance. It's a combination of all of these team members. Because you don't know where the next idea comes from. Everybody would believe that somebody from sales and marketing should be the ideal choice to, bring out, new thoughts. Sure, agreed, because they possibly would be the closest ones to the customer or the consumer. But who knows the product the best? It's the guy who actually makes it or designs it. Yeah, so anything can come from anywhere. An idea can come from anywhere, right? And with an open culture like this, and where you're allowed to experiment, where you're allowed to think, where you're allowed to go out and talk to customers. Anybody can go out to and speak to a customer. The encouragement for experimentation is really very, very important. And more important is the ability to take risks. I'm not saying take a risk that is extremely, on an extreme, right? How do you take calculated risks that lead to innovation? And I remember when I was in retail till about 2018, 2019, thankfully, we had our uh, managing director was, and also the owner of the company, was someone who believed in this because he was an entrepreneur himself. And he came up through experimentation. He came up through, observing customers. He came up to talking to customers. He said, that's the kind of culture I want you guys to follow. And I remember making so many mistakes. Possibly in some other organization, it would not have been tolerated. But we grew so fast because, as a team, we kind of were allowed to make those mistakes, allowed to learn from failures and then move ahead. And one of the things that helped is absolute open communication. Today in current in organizations, and I'm sure some of you may be experiencing this, when you get into a meeting and you start discussing, there would be somebody else who would try and put you down. It could be a manager, it could be a peer. That is something that needs to go. Of course, as an owner of the company or as a business head, possibly uh, it may be easier for you to put it through. But imagine if you're somewhere in the middle management cadre, and you have an idea that you want to put across. How do you get it through without being made fun of or ridiculed? Right? How do we collaborate with different team members, inter and intra team? Because each one of us have our own perspectives. Giving you flexibility, remove the rigidness of a 9 to 5 maybe. Okay, you can come at 10 o'clock and go at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, or you can come at 11 o'clock, or you want to come at 6 in the morning and go at 3 o'clock. Please feel free. Typically, like how some of the IT companies work across the world, or some of the startups work. Is that possible today? Can that be made possible? And the more I study the way things are changing, it is becoming like that. Today, you have a concept of digital nomads. These guys are people who work remotely and work from very different places. They're not fixated to a particular location. And of course, the ability to take very calculated risks that allows for experimentation, learning from failures, you know, correcting. In if I have to use in a very entrepreneurial terms, how do you really, create those moments of uh, fail fast or affordable loss, as they call it? That is so very important to drive an environment of innovation. I know it sounds easy when speaking about it, but believe me, it's hard because there's a lot of change that is required. And change, while we say change is the only constant, for people to change, for us to change, it is something extremely difficult. Right? We are used to, or as people, I think we are used to a certain way of for doing things and accepting certain things, right? We like to get stuck into very, very comfort zones. And while we looked at how you could make it happen, some of the barriers that come about is very rigid hierarchies. Some organizations are extremely rigid in the way everything is top down. And in doing so, it's always, when it's top down, it's always, hey, what the CEO says goes, whether he's right or wrong, period. He or she is right or wrong, right? The other thing that stops us from doing something like this is the fear of failure. We're extremely scared. There are even times today, sometimes when know, I have, I think I consider myself lucky because I get to do two things. One is I get to work with a lot of young guys in the teaching in the academic space. And I also get to work with some very innovative entrepreneurs who are doing some very fantastic stuff, cutting edge stuff in the technology space, especially in marketing technology, right? And I know sometimes when we discuss is this whole point of fear of failure. What will happen if we fail? And just to go back to my own experience of working in a corporate side of it, I remember uh, an activity that we had done. it brought in some phenomenal sales. It was whole activity was driven around how do you incentivize the loyalty program members to come back to us, use their points to shop, and then get rewarded. And believe me, we got some fantastic customers, some very high net worth customers who had a lot of points coming into our stores for the very first time. But what we didn't calculate, we did have some kind of a rough estimate of how much it would cost, but we didn't realize it would go 3x. While of course sales was very good, we achieved 4x of what we had targeted, but the 3x cost was also kind of something that, thankfully, I think because of the way the organization was structured and there was an upside. I think it was forgiven and said, you know what, this is a great learning, fantastic effort. If you do it next time, how do we do it without such a heavy expense? And of course, the other thing is, if you don't have the kind of resources, especially large organizations which have a lot of resources, how do you even do something like this? And not necessarily that everything requires technology. So let me, run you through a few examples from the globe, some of the examples from your own region, your own country that you're in right now. Yeah. Of course, we all know how innovative Google is and the kind of things that Google does. Right? Even Google today has not been able to catch up with what ChatGPT has been doing or OpenAI has been doing. Such is the kind of pace of innovation that's happening. And one of the key things that Google does is ask employees, out of the 100% time they spend in the office, 80% is on the work and 20% is for employees to pursue or do something that they find that they're passionate about. And it is this 20% that actually gives rise to so many new things. All those little innovations that we see or little improvements that you see on the Google Maps or even during, when you're doing Google search, or you see a lot of personalized, today you see a lot of hyper personalization happening on your, search page or even, on your email, is all things that are being driven as a passion, which comes into the mainstream because it becomes very relevant for the customer. And one good thing about Google is there are no hierarchies. Anybody can come up with an idea and there'll be a team that will work on it. No egos, no hierarchies, no rigid bottlenecks. Another organization that I think is extremely innovative is 3M. And we know the kind of products that has come out, whether it's Post-it or whether it's your adhesive and so on and so forth, right? Again, they follow something called a 15% rule. 15% rule for employees to think very differently. Give them the complete autonomy to think creatively and see what they can do different. How a failed project within 3M gave rise to the Post-it. They wanted to create an adhesive, and they realized that the adhesive was not, it was not holding, because they wanted to make an adhesive that did not leave any stains and so on and so forth. I think there was a lot of things like that. But they realized that while the flip side of it, or the downside of the adhesive was, while it stuck, it allowed two things to hold, but it could not get stuck permanently. And when it came off, there was no adhesive residue left on either surface. They were about to scrap the project when somebody said, "Hey, why don't we try it and do something like this?" And that's how the Post-it was born, or the scrub pad and so on and so forth, or any of the number of products that 3M has brought out. Why could it happen? It happened because somebody there decided to, or there was already a culture created. I'm going to give you an example of cream. I know we spoke about it last time. Today, if it wasn't for the diverse ideas and that was being encouraged within, I don't think Kareem would have been, reached where it is today. It started off as a simple website offering you ride hailing. You could just order a taxi. That was the first thing that it started. And I'm sure most of you use, or all of you must be using Kareem. Today it does so many things, right? You can book your rides, whether it's car, taxis, bikes, you know, even school apparently, I believe. Even your school kids can hire can hire a ride and go get to the school. It does food delivery from restaurants, grocery and supermarket delivery, picking up of parcels, B2B courier services, car rentals, home cleaning, laundry. It's become a complete super app. Digital payments, tickets and events booking. It's like one stop for everything that you need. And how could this have happened? Did the customer require it? I'm sure the customer may not have required half of these, but they just did because they felt that need and they built that platform around it. Yes, you may argue and say, hey, Kareem was a startup. That's why they could do it easily because there were no hierarchies. There was no, you know, legacy to be this thing. Agreed. So in the next section, I'm going to speak to you about a company that's doing some fabulous things. Of course, you all know uh, the Neom project that's there. I don't know what the development is. I've not kept in touch with what the development is, but that's something that's out of the world. Or we hear about China doing so many things, building cities in deserts, building bridges where the land or the space would not even support any kind of construction. Or the green initiative that's happening in Saudi Arabia. And I just was reading yesterday because they're importing a lot of cow dung from India to kind of grow dates organically. Look at the kind of shift that's happening, right? How many of you would have thought that this was possible 10 years ago? But today it's become a necessity. And how quickly things have moved. And I must highlight this company. It's a giant. And I'm sure some of you may be even working there. It's a massive giant. While on one side, they're of course possibly the largest producer of crude oil in the world. They're also investing a lot into R&D, into sustainability, into renewable energy, and so on and so forth, right? Because they're also worried, they're also kind of keeping an eye on the future. But what if I tell you that they have, what's a patent, right? A patent is basically a kind of I won't call it a trademark, but it's kind of it's something when you invent or innovate, you can actually protect that like an IP and all that, and then you kind of get a patent on it. That means nobody can copy it unless they take the license from you. They've got upwards of nearly 1,000 patents, and this would not have been possible if they had not invested into R&D. On one side, you have a startup like Kareem that's moving at great speed because they are very asset light, they're very people light, they don't have the legacy and so on and so forth. And on the other side, you have a company like Saudi Aramco, possibly, which has got a lot of legacy, which has got a lot of hierarchy, layers in their entire management team, but still are able to own about 1,000 patents, if not more. So much so that the Boston Consulting Group has rated them one of the top 50 innovative companies and possibly the only company from the Middle East. So they must be doing something right. And I wish I really knew how, what kind of culture they follow. And if somebody is, one of you who's here is attending the session, is working there, I'm glad to hear what is being done. Of course, there are a lot of Indian examples. There's Infosys. Today, I hear about even in India, a company like Hindustan Lever, which is a very large company and very old, very legacy, uh, very heavy in terms of its people and its brand and so on and so forth, is now practicing a culture of experimentation. Even a company like Hindustan Lever with your product like Lakme and chemical based cosmetic and personal care products, it has realized that there are customers who want chemical free products. So how do you manage? If they can't do it, they go and collaborate with startups. They just recently bought uh, a startup that is making cosmetics, chemical free cosmetics. They just paid them 3,000 crores and kind of bought the company. And the founders today are there helping the entire transition take place. Companies like Infosys, which is very service led, is now realizing that, hey, you know what, we can't only focus on services. We have to move into products or, move into areas which are upcoming today, like emerging technologies, digital, digital solutions or digital transformation solutions. There's Zerodha, which is again giving you cutting edge financial investment, making investment very easy. Geo itself, I think, created a lot of uh, buzz when it came in through innovative, rental plans and so on and so forth. And that kind of shook up and disrupted the entire industry. If some of you are very familiar with India, there's a concept called quick commerce, which has kind of shaken up the entire retail ecosystem here. So much so that large supermarkets and even small, mom and pop stores or the kirana stores, as we call it here, are struggling to manage because suddenly you have the quick commerce player who's ready to deliver your entire groceries from vegetables to your tea to coffee to rice in under 10 minutes. Gone are the days where you have to plan for the month. You can plan for a day. And if there's nothing at home, just pick up your phone, open the app, order, and in 5-6 minutes, he's ringing the bell and give you the bag. So what can one do to build this culture of innovation? Obviously, encourage creativity, reduce fear of failure, get people to spend time apart from their regular work. Let them contribute, open house. It is tough, let me tell you, but it is the need of the hour today. Reward people for doing this. It is important that these people feel rewarded. Only then when you and more importantly, if you create an environment like this and implement this kind of a culture, your good people stay back. You retain people. And moment something like this happens, the good people are retained. There's a lot of morale. And like they say, and more so for retail, you keep your employees happy, and your customers become even more happier. And this is where I repeat myself from my previous session on entrepreneurship, is why there is a need to have a growth mindset. Look at challenges and opportunities. Every instance is an opportunity for growth. And given the current, very um, erratic, the way the entire thing just moves, the change, the kind of erratic change that happens, how does one really be resilient to that change? Learn from failure, it's okay. I'm sure as students, we all failed, either in the subject or we had to repeat a year or so on and so forth. But we didn't lose hope. And how do you constantly improve from currently what you're doing? How do you really improve and then create that environment that allows for this? So resilience, adaptability, so very critical today in the current current times. How do you see challenges? How do you see customer change happening? Don't worry about the change. Yes, quick commerce is hitting. How can we tackle quick commerce? What can we do? Should we take them head on or should we collaborate? Right? Again, learning from failure, supportive environments. And all of this is not possible while you as middle management may want to drive a lot of things. But let me tell you one thing, it won't be possible unless the leadership team gives its blessing. There's a need to establish clear goals. What is the vision that you want to achieve? What are the outcomes that you want to achieve? Because you must realize if you have to overcome the fear of failure, you need the top management's clearance on that. It's okay to fail. It's okay to lose a little money for a greater good that's coming. And how to ensure that people actually embrace this change? Because let me tell you one thing, embracing change is a very difficult thing, and there are people who will resist. I'm sure in your own organizations, wherever you are working, I'm sure some of you all may, get a sense of how other team members behave when they're asked to do something very different from what they're already doing. They will resist. They will try and give you excuses to say why that shouldn't be done, or why it will fail. They're only doing it because they don't want to embrace the change. They don't want to go into and try out something new. But keep in mind, if you're the owner of an organization, or if you're the CEO, or if you're the leadership, start thinking of how you can establish an innovative culture. How can you create an environment where open communication, removing rigid hierarchies, embracing failure, all that can set in. And if you're in a middle management, try and see if you can go and talk to your manager or your manager's manager and say, how can we bring this? Because it's time, things are changing. And things are not done, and you need to build a very diverse and inclusive team to do this. Not necessarily that only the marketing team or the sales team or the production team or a design team or whoever it is are qualified. A combination of marketing, sales, and finance, and design, and product, and so on and so forth. All of them, I think, we should come together to kind of create that entire ecosystem. Again, coming back to the Microsoft case study today, how today Microsoft is challenging everybody in the space of AI. Google is a leader, of course, in search. But how many of you know that Bing, which is from Microsoft, because of the fact that they've incorporated OpenAI and ChatGPT into research capabilities has actually gained about 2% or 3%, 2% market share. From 1% that it was, it's moved to 3.5%, 4%, which means that Google has lost the 2-3%, which is very large. It may not seem large from a percentage perspective, but when you see it from a overall volume perspective, it's quite a large number. 2% of 4 billion or 5 billion users is a very big number. Yeah. And not just that, but the amount of innovation they're trying in the space of AI. They recently also tried, by immersing data centers. They set up a lot of data centers across the world, and they even had data centers in like a tank, and they actually kind of immersed underwater. Why? Because they didn't want to invest in cooling systems, like an air conditioning system, which could mean additional energy loss and so on and so forth. So they put it in water so that it would always remain cool, because these things generate a lot of heat. Yeah. So how are they working on mitigating carbon emissions? How are they setting benchmarks? How are they inspiring other companies to drive? Yeah. So a lot of things are happening. I'm sure we can find multiple examples if we look, whether it's the European car companies who are trying to move into the EV space, or a company like Toyota who says, hey, we don't want EVs, but we'll do hybrid. They are working on different technologies that way, because they realize that EVs means, batteries could become a huge dumping issue later on, which could create some other problem. So how do you use hybrid technologies? A combination of rechargeable battery and fuel to kind of ensure that there's a shift between the two. So there's efficiencies happening, less carbon reduced, less, and more green friendly and so on and so forth. And if some of you attended my previous lecture, and if you're not an issue, there's also a concept of corporate entrepreneurship, or intrapreneurship, as you call it, right? Which is basically how large companies can set up teams that can develop new products and new services. What's the similarities between innovation and corporate entrepreneurship? Both concepts really foster creativity and new ideas within organizations. The difference with corporate entrepreneurship and innovation is innovation need not just mean only for new products and services. Innovation could also mean improving certain efficiencies within an organization to kind of create better outcomes, or more profitability. But both really allow for empowering employees. More so corporate entrepreneurship, because there you're actually asking employees to become like entrepreneurs. There's a team who can work like a startup within an organization and then work by themselves independently. So having said that, it's all because the customer really is someone who's wanting something very different every time. I don't need 10-minute delivery of my groceries and my vegetables, but I've got used to it. I know it's there. So once in a while, if I'm in a good mood, I walk to the store. Otherwise, if I'm feeling lazy and don't want to do anything, I just use the convenience of the quick commerce. Right? And the more innovative a company, the better the experience, the higher the customer loyalty. And today, with different choices that customers have, customers can switch between products at the flick of a button. How do you retain customers is also extremely important, and it's why innovation really becomes so much more critical. And it's so much more important to ensure that you are listening to the customer, whoever your customer is, not just a retail, uh, the B2C customer. It could even be a B2B customer, right? And so to conclude, innovation is extremely important because I think it helps organizations thrive in a very competitive landscape, and more so with things being on such a flux. I'm sure all of you must have heard or read about the complete tariff war that happened. It's a little cooled off a little bit now, but it's there, it's simmering. The need to be creative. Creative doesn't mean painting, dancing, singing, not performing arts. But how can you come up with certain small ideas, small solutions that can improve or create something very different for the end consumer at the end of the day? Extremely important to empower employees, because then they can participate in the creative process. They can participate by once you have a very open kind of an environment. And if the leadership is not involved, none of this would really be possible. Right? Yeah. So I end my session, and I'm open to taking questions.
Hello, everyone. Any questions, anybody? There have been no questions, unfortunately, sir. I think Sarfaraz had asked a question, but I would let other people also, if they want to ask any question. There are many new names over here.
And happy, ask a question that's possibly relevant from your own organization, your own organization that you work in.
Correct. Anybody, any questions, anyone? Thanks, Naila. You have... Awesome. Okay. Nice. No question also is good, which means hopefully you guys
I've done a good job. I've done two things.
Probably you've done a good job.
I have kind of confused everybody, left them.
I'm quite sure about it. But anybody, anyone, before we wind up? Sir, I think, no questions. Sarfaraz also is surprisingly quiet today. Otherwise, he's one of the few.
Very vocal. Yeah, I know. I think I
he's good.
I mean, last time. Yeah,
and he's attentive. I don't know how he manages work and all these things, but he attends all these sessions. I really appreciate his, perseverance towards getting more information. Sarfaraz, sorry, you have unmuted yourself. Yeah, please.
Thank you so much, sir. It really encourages me to learn more by these good comments from you. Yeah. And
no, I really mean it. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
So, sir, I think no questions is also good for you. Yeah. I'll just do the voting. The vote of thanks, sorry.
Sure.
So I would just request all the participants to, I think I have posted many number of times the link for your participation, for your free participation certificates. So please fill the form and get your certificates done. You cannot send us separately, and then it becomes difficult for us to manage one by one. So please do it now. And I also request back as we'll discuss our very MBA program. Thank you so much, Jiten sir, for that insightful and engaging session. Your expertise in the areas of entrepreneurship is definitely outstanding, and the examples that you gave on Apple, Kareem, Microsoft, and many other incredible points that you have discussed in the session has provided immense value to everyone who are present here today. And a huge thanks to all the participants from taking their time from their, workload for the day and then joining us. And we really hope you found this session helpful and inspiring. And please keep an eye out for our upcoming sessions as well, where we'll definitely continue to explore more critical management topics and trends. And please ensure that you have filled the forms. Once again, I have to tell you this because it's a certificate and you always share it on LinkedIn and tag us and stuff like that. So I really not tell you, you guys know it better. We'll be back again on 30th with yet another incredible guest. And to everyone. So thank you so much. In the meantime, I would request the participants to stay back so that we can discuss our executive MBA program. Thank you, sir.